Hello, welcome everyone. I'm super excited to have you join us for Fearless Virtual Facilitating with Dr. Kris Lea and conflict coach Karen Harold. Welcome. I know we are letting folks come onto the call. We sure do appreciate you joining us today. We have a lot to cover, and it's very exciting to have Dr. Kris Lea and Karen Harold with us today. Before we begin, I just want to say thank you, and I also want to acknowledge some of our sponsors for our summit. First, I want to say thank you to the Whitmarsh Consulting Group for all their hard work and support in helping us make the summit possible. They are a group of super talented multi-channel marketing specialists, and I cannot recommend them highly enough. I also want to say thank you to Insperity. Insperity is HR that matters. When I reached out to Insperity and I said, starting in 24 hours, I want to do this summit where we're putting together a lot of experts that will simply be of service to businesses and HR folks who perhaps need a little support through this difficult time. And would you be willing to sponsor? They said, absolutely no problem. Count us in. Just like Dr. Kris Lea and Karen, you guys were like, yes, we're in. How can we help? So when I went back to them and I said, what would you be willing to offer as a freebie, as a gift for our audience? They thought about it and they came back and they said, well, how about an HR financial analysis report and confidential debrief? And as I asked them a few more questions about that, I realized that this is kind of a big deal. We know that HR budgets are out the window 2020 and maybe even 2021. It's going to be very difficult to operate according to our old plans. All of us have to shift and pivot and create new plans. And this particular opportunity will give you an opportunity to see what other organizations in similar situations are doing and how you might pivot as well. So they know that not everyone that takes advantage of this offer is a good fit for them, but don't let that stop you from reaching out to them and taking advantage of their free financial analysis report and debrief. To learn more, go to turnkeycoachingsolutions.net, HR report. Finally, I want to say thank you to our internal team of strategists who have put together a pretty awesome pre and post crisis strategy planning and alignment program. This is a data-driven process with expert management consultants and strategic planning experts who come together with your team to support you in that pivot, in the reevaluation, and in some cases in an entire shift around your organizational business and goals. And they're not doing it for free, but they are doing it for the next best thing, name your own price. So that's kind of a big deal. I'm really, really proud to be a part of the team that's doing that. So if we can be of support to you or your leadership team during this difficult time, it would be our privilege. My name is Anissa Avon, and I am the CEO and founder of TurnKey Coaching Solutions. And when we decided to put together this summit, we reached out to folks, like I said, like Dr. Kris Lea and Karen Harold. And before the week was done, we had over 40 experts on the books. We are now moving into May to keep going. We're adding new experts all the time, every Wednesday and Thursday in April and May, and it's free. So join us again for some of the other talks and do share it with your friends. I am really thrilled about this topic, fearless virtual facilitating. In the 3 minutes before we hit the broadcast button, I already had 4 or 5 tips that Karen and Kris actually shared with us, including why you see me sitting up higher. I got me a pillow. That was kind of a big deal because I'd been needing a pillow all this time. But let's start with a little bit about you, Dr. Kris Lea. Dr. Lea provides expert organizational consulting and facilitation and training. She has extensive experience in organizational development and organizational change management, including training and development and project management. She specifically partners with clients across a spectrum of industries. She's received her Master's of Science in OD from the University of San Francisco and earned a doctorate in OD from Alliant International University. And with Karen and her, there's this synergistic collaboration that I think you guys are going to learn a lot from today. Karen brings over 30 years of intense mediation experience, as she puts it, from all sides of the table. She's a mediator. She's an educator. She's a conflict resolution specialist. And as you can see right there, AKA forces of nature. So thank you guys both for bringing your expertise. And what are we going to learn today?
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. My goodness. I was listening to you read my bio and I was like, oh, that's pretty impressive.
Who is that? Oh, wait.
Who is that? Oh, wait, that's me. Anyway, welcome everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Anissa and TurnKey Coaching. Just amazing opportunity to be with all of you. So Karen and I are partners and colleagues and friends, and we like to call ourselves froligs because we think friends and colleagues together make a really wonderful combination, and we think friends and colleagues that help each other move forward in our lives. That's really what we try to do for each other. And this course, I'm gonna share now and have us take a look at the PowerPoint. Is everyone seeing this okay? Give me a thumbs up if you can, or you can use your voice. Thank you. And let me go into slideshow mode. So we started out March 13th, the day that my cell phone had so many cancellations of a variety of different things, and it felt like the world was imploding in terms of our professional lives. Karen and I teach for Sacramento State College of Continuing Education and different programs, and we really thought that there would be a huge need for people who are professionals, coaches, consultants, meeting facilitators, instructors, for there to be a quick, I'll say, transition to being able to deliver and feel comfortable to do that in a virtual environment. So this was all produced in a conversation over a really great hamburger and a beer, and we felt like we were really doing something with deep love and appreciation for all of our colleagues and frolics out there. And so, Karen, you want to say hi? You haven't had a chance.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Again, thank you to TurnKey Coaching for allowing Kris and I to participate in such this wonderful event. Just a little bit more briefly about me: mediator and conflict resolution specialist, former law enforcement, and I even had a stint in media as a reporter. So now I've spent the last 30 years focusing on conflict resolution, mediation, not only in the personal plane, but professionally as well, helping everybody learn how to fight right. So I really I appreciate being here, and I look forward to offering something special when we're done.
Great.
All right. Excellent. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move us along and share a couple of things here. We start with a basic assumption for everyone that is on the call or listening afterwards, that you have comfort with delivery of different types in a, I'll say, brick and mortar environment, a stand-up environment, but you need some tips about virtual delivery. And virtual delivery is different, and we'll talk about the ways that it's actually different. So we are using Zoom today, but there are many different tools that you can use to do this type of work. And I believe, Anissa, you're going to send the materials out afterward with our offers also.
Yeah,
Yes?
just to be clear, they'll be actually in the media section on the replay page.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So if anyone is using Zoom for the first time, you can find the chat and you can let us know if it's your first time, and if you need any help. Karen is helping me along with everyone at TurnKey, just watching the chat feature to see if anyone needs any help. But this slide is going to move and give a little bit in terms of basic functionality for Zoom. You can mute yourself. I think everyone is muted currently. Is that correct, Anissa?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So later, I think we can unmute if people want to use their voice to ask a question, or you can ask your question with the chat feature. We don't have, well, I don't think we've got video for folks right now, but if you were in another meeting setting, you can control your video option. And this feature here allows you to invite other people. This feature here allows you to see who's in a room, in a given room. And also you can go here to rename yourself. If you see Karen Harold, co-presenter, and she's got a customized name, this is one way that you can just get a little bit of information about people right away by having them change their name and how they're showing up in the room. And then sharing a screen, which I'm doing that right now. And then finally, I'm going to have everybody use the chat feature right now and say hello and where you're from. Let us know where you're from by using the chat feature. So I'm going to pause for a moment. Where are people from, Karen?
Well, I see that we have people from Houston, Texas, Tacoma, Washington, Dallas, Texas, Bettina, Richmond, Virginia, what? Montreal, Chesterfield, Los Angeles. Oh, I can't wait to get on a plane and start traveling. Oh my goodness, thank you everybody. Oh, hi.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great
Yes.
group.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for saying hi in chat. Please continue to use the chat. If you have a question, if you need any help, you want to get anyone's attention, that's the best way. All right. Now we're looking at a slide that starts to talk about participant activity. And Zoom has a really great feature called the Breakout Room. And this is functionality that other platforms have, but specifically to Zoom, it's called Breakout. It's a breakout room in which you can take a large group and break them into smaller conversations. Now, why would you want to do that? I mean, there are times that if you have, let's say, a pair conversation, and let's say you want people to have a more intimate conversation, or if you want some time to allow for people maybe that need, or sometimes if there's a lot of people on a call and there are introverts that would like to have a little bit, I'll say more private conversation, putting them into small groups does really help and facilitate their ability to have a more intimate conversation. So using the breakout discussion room is one of the ways that we will convert like a classroom delivery into a virtual delivery. Now, one of the big things I think is important, and if you can let me know in the chat feature if you can relate to this, when the COVID crisis began and things began to change in terms of the expectation of our delivery, our ability to reach out to our clients, to teach, to facilitate, to run meetings, there was a sense that everything is easily converted to a virtual environment. Did anyone have that feeling like it's just a simple matter of taking what you have for a classroom and then simply putting it and delivering it online, and that's all there is to it? Let me know if that was what you thought was sort of out in the world in terms of expectations. And how did you feel about that? Because I think that was sort of the notion, like, well, just convert it to virtual. Is it that easy though? Tell me, is it that easy?
Well, I know, Kris, I can definitely say that you and I, even though we've been doing this work for such a long time, that we know it's not easy, but it's really more challenging and difficult than people really realize. So thankfully, if you've been working in the training and development field and arena, you have some sense of it, but this just takes it to a new level.
Right. Thank you. So here's one thing, everybody. When we do this workshop, Karen and I have been doing this workshop, I think it's probably our 15th or 16th one that we've actually delivered. And it's the beauty of it is that I'll say we toggle back and forth from actually delivering the content of the workshop and then stepping back and explaining what we're doing. So we step behind the curtain a little bit to say, here's why we just did what we just did. All right. And this is really what the purpose of the workshop is so that you can get behind the curtain a little bit and say, why did Kris just do that? So here's what I just did. I asked you a question. I'm giving you some instructions about Let us know in chat what you think about this. So in virtual delivery, you do have to be very specific about what you want people to do, because there's multiple ways for them to interact. So it's helpful if you say, let us know in chat. Or if you're going to go around a room full of people and call on people, it's helpful if you call on them ahead of time so that they're prepared. As much as you can verbally do to get people prepared to experience the virtual environment, the better off, the more comfortable they are. Okay, so that's one thing. And the second thing is
actually, Kris.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Before you move forward, can you give an example of that in terms of calling so people are prepped? Can you give an example of that?
Yeah. So if we had, let's say we had, right now I'm seeing five people in terms of video. I'm not seeing everybody that's on the call, but if I had a screen and I had, let's say 20 people, and in that case, if I said, I'd love to hear from everybody. Here's a couple speaking points for your introduction. So I'm giving them what I want them to say. Then I'm going to say, let's everybody keep it to a 2-minute introduction. And I'm going to start with Anissa, then I'm going to go to Paige, and then I'm going to go to Sheila, right? So they have a lot of structure, which is really helpful. Why is that? We are sitting here in a virtual environment, and we're not always sure how to lean in and engage. So we need to help people to really understand what we'd like them to do, right? The more they understand, the more comfortable they are. And the better the facilitation is. So yeah, thank you, Karen. The other thing I just did, so behind the curtains kind of thing, is that sometimes we're sharing content and sometimes we want to have a discussion. So as soon as we go into a discussion mode, I take the content off the screen. So I'm able to see everyone that I can see in video. I can see everybody there. It's a little bit better. And it's a way of bringing people back into the room. Sometimes when there's content on the screen, it's tempting to do other things. But as soon as the facilitator takes the content off the screen, brings everybody back into full view, what I call the cameos, which is all of the video squares, then that brings us back in. So it's just a facilitation technique that I use to make sure that there's variety in the experience. Yes? How does that sound? Do we have any questions out there we need to deal with? Or Anissa, do you have any?
Not yet. This is, I'm already learning some things, and I have some questions, but I'm going to wait until I suspect you're going to answer them in a moment.
Okie dokie. I might not, but you'll see.
I'll come back to them.
All right. All right, so we talked a little bit about the breakout rooms, and I'm going to go ahead. Oh, let me just pause on this. When you have a breakout room experience, this is part of the design of your transition from, I'll say, in class, in person to virtual. You really do have to think through what are you trying to accomplish with each design piece. So let's say I want to put people together in a table group conversation and have them solve a problem, or I want to put them together in pairs or trios and talk about a particular topic. I have to know what I want to do and what the outcome of that particular interaction will be and set it up that way in advance, right? So I would have something, this is an example of me saying, all right, I'm going to put you into pairs and we're going to go into a breakout room, and here's what I'd like you to talk about, right? I give them a prompt, and that really does help them.
And also, just to add to that, as Kris is giving the verbal prompt, as a co-facilitator, what I'm doing is I am also putting this in the chat room. So then that way, because everyone learns a little bit differently and their engagement is a bit different. So we have it on the screen, we have Kris sharing it verbally, and then we also have it in the chat room.
Yes, yes. So the breakout room is a really nice experience. You can really add depth to a class, a facilitation, a coaching by using the breakout room. But it's part of the tip for today is to get comfortable, if you want to use it, to practice it a couple of times before you do a live delivery. All right. So here's our agenda, everybody. I know I'm 20 minutes in and now I'm just barely giving you the agenda. So I'm breaking all the rules right away. And that's okay. So breaking the rules and being creative in these kinds of settings is absolutely okay. I think being confident about your delivery is the most important thing. So don't worry about small little things and just breathe and move forward. So anyway, here we are. We've got our agenda, and I'm talking a little bit fast because I want to make sure I'm on time. But we're going to talk a little bit more about participant engagement, a little bit about physical presence, how we translate that from on ground to an online experience, a little bit about content, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so in terms of technology, there's lots of different platforms nowadays. So our tip here is to be very comfortable, whatever you're using, whether you're using Adobe Connect, you're using Zoom, you're using GoToMeeting, there's lots of really great platforms out there, but learn it really well, and learn what's different between the host functions and the participant functions. And that is a big deal, because as a host, if you're running the meeting, you will have more functions than your participants will. Yes, in practice, some instructors that I work with now are using a second laptop. So for example, I'm not doing it right now, but when I'm teaching a class, I'll have a second laptop next to me so that I can have the chat feature open, and I can see what's going on and have more real estate on my primary laptop. So using a second laptop, or even a monitor, which you can drag things so you can basically have the visual real estate that you need. So that's a tip. And just keep in mind, we're doing everything that we would normally do. We're just converting it into a virtual environment, which is basically just a different kind of a container, right? So Karen, do we have questions, or are we good? We're good, okay.
Great, keep going.
All right, so you notice Karen gave me a thumbs up. This is our practice between the two of us. And as a facilitator, whatever you'd like from your participants, if you tell them, just if you're on mute and you can't use your voice, you can give me a thumbs up, right? So I'm giving instructions about how I want people to interact so that I can get their feedback. One of the challenges in delivering this in this way, and maybe all of you can relate, is that if you're not seeing people, especially if they don't come onto camera, you don't get that feedback cycle of energy that we're accustomed to, right? If you've been in a classroom and you can look around the room and you can see people, you can meet their eyes, you can see their facial expressions, that's an energy cycle. We miss that sometimes when we're in a virtual environment. So the more we can interact in a virtual environment, the better the energy is. So these are some tips, and you probably know some of these already, and maybe you're doing them already, but I'll list them out. I'm going to click through here. We did a brief introduction in the beginning. Depending on your content, depending on the objective of your session, you can add in lengthier icebreakers. You can add in introductions. You can do anything you want, really. You just have to manage the time. Icebreakers and introductions can take a lot of time, but if you want a group of people to really bond, it's worth it. It's really worth it to have them spend a little bit of time together. Chat, we've been using chat already. We can save the chat transcript, and I think right now we've got the save capability on the chat. But Anissa, afterward, will we have the chat transcript to send out in case we need it, or how does?
I think we can grab that, absolutely, and we can put it in the media on the replay.
Yeah, sometimes people are sharing really great resources in chat. So if they don't want to have to take notes, paper notes off to the side, if it's in chat, then we just send them the transcript after. The polling feature, if anyone's used the polling feature in any setting, this can be done through Zoom, or you can actually insert it as an overlay into PowerPoint. But this is a really fun participant engagement mechanism. Talked a little bit about breakout rooms, and you can configure this however you want to based on what your objective is. Karen, you have something? You're good? Okay. Thank you.
Oh, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes we may find that we might be trying to look for something on the screen, and I love when Kris does it, so I think she's going to follow through. So sometimes when you're just getting started working with technology, it can get pretty overwhelming trying to look on the screen. So sometimes we might lean in, right, Kris? We might lean in. Come on, Kris, come with me.
This is my Zoom angry face. This is my Zoom angry face. I'm looking for something on the keyboard, right? So we are on camera, folks. We are completely on camera, just like we would if we were on the news, on the nightly. And we're seeing, everyone is seeing our face. So when we all were learning about Zoom, I know I must have done a lot of this and on the keyboard. but it's
every presenter has done it, and yet I'm watching you guys laughing as if I haven't done it, and I just have to tell you I have. So, but it's
well, we all do it.
We do it.
Everybody does it. Everybody does it. So really, I'll say there's just maybe a growing awareness about our skills in this environment. That's really what it is.
Right. And the reason I was bringing that up, Kris, exactly. So I don't know how many of you had heard about this briefly, about the young lady named Jennifer who didn't really understand the whole concept of Zoom. And she happened to take the Zoom with her where she shouldn't have. Poor Jennifer. So let's just make sure that we're aware of the space that we're in. And then another thing so this is one way participants can engage. And then another way, I wanted to also point out, Kris brought up the chat room. Somebody said they saw it. Also, there is the participant window. And if you look at that window, everyone's names is there. And you have the ability to raise your hand in that has a raise your hand button. So usually what I do is I just go, hi. But if you want to go to the participant window, you open that and you can click raise hand. And that's another way to let the presenters know that you have some information or a question.
Right. And raising the hand is the electronic hand. So if you're telling people to raise your hand if you've got a question, they might just raise their hand, or they might know automatically to use the electronic hand, which you can. It's fine. We're all learning. So this is the point, right? Where everybody is learning all of this stuff at the same time, and it's pretty hysterical because some people will raise their hand and some people will use the electronic hand, and that's a perfect time for some levity, because that's what this is all about right now. Because we're in a whole new world. Right. We're not in Kansas anymore. Well, unless you're in Kansas right now, but all right. Thank you, Karen, for adding that. And then if you need to, if you are teaching, if you're running a meeting, absolutely setting ground rules for virtual settings is appropriate. You just have to adapt them to a virtual environment. And it could be something like, when we take a break, please come back on time and say hello in the chat feature when you're back, so I know you're back, right? That's a way that you can engage people, know when they're back. You can set some ground rules about their participation. And so it's absolutely the same, but different in a virtual environment. Okay.
One other thing also about this is that I've heard a lot of teachers complaining about participants eating in their chat window. So even being aware of that, eating, drinking, it can be a bit distracting, not only to the facilitator, but to other participants as well.
Yeah. And it depends on how formal or informal it is, right? If we're playing bingo with our families on a Saturday night, hey, we can look like the critters on the left. This is actually, my dog does look like this. But so in terms of the formality, I do think there's value in helping people to be prepared in advance, because sometimes people come onto a call and they're not sure, right? Is it a formal setting? Is it an informal setting? So if you can prepare them, especially if you'd like them to be on video, to prepare them in advance so they can get themselves all fixed up and pretty. This just has a couple of slides or images about host-specific functions This has to do with the breakout function and some of the security features that Zoom has now. And you might have already heard that Zoom had a little bit of trouble, people Zoom bombing. We have a whole new vocabulary now that we're using these tools, but you can control who comes into the room, or like with what Anissa and TurnKey will do is basically open up the meeting at the same time, and they've controlled the invitations for security purposes. So there's a lot of security features, and just find out what those are depending on the platform you're using. Okay. All right, so I'd love for everybody to use the chat now and let us know if you've experienced any challenges in virtual delivery yourself. So take a minute or two, think about it, and let us know.
I was going to say, while we're waiting for folks to answer, I can personally answer this. The worst is when you've lost something on the screen, your chat box, your participant box, sometimes you lose, sometimes the Zoom link comes in and out, you know, it thinks it's super fancy and I can't find it. And you've only got so much time. So the levity that you mentioned earlier is really our friend. And just laughing at myself saying, well, I was going to read your chat, but now you've disappeared. Sorry, you know, and, you know, and going with the flow that way is what I've learned.
Yes, I think that is very important. It does feel like we are at our desks suddenly a bit of an octopus. We're managing content, we're managing these windows, we're managing the chat feature and people raising their hands and doing all this stuff. So there's a lot to pay attention to. Including finding the documents on our own desktops that we want to share. And that's why sometimes I would be looking around like this. I don't know why I thought I was going to find it there, but that's where I thought I was going to find it. I was going to be down there somewhere. And one of the biggest tips, and we have this on the slide, but I'll mention it now because the reason that we partner, Karen and I always partner together, is so that we can cover each other. Right? I can punt over and say, oh, you know, Karen, tell that story about blah, blah, blah. And then I could take care of something on my PC, right? So we cover each other. It makes the delivery so much easier and better. Now we have some in the comments in the chat.
I am monitoring the chat right now, so I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on some of the questions. So Kris, do you have a camera on your particular laptop, or do you have a separate camera? Some were asking, is it better to have an external camera or use the camera that's on your PC or laptop?
I'm using my own camera on my laptop, and it's straight ahead. So I've lined it up so I am as much as trying to look into your eyes by having the camera at eye level, but you can have an external camera and you can attach it. You could attach it on and have it be around at the same height. So you can do that, and I know a lot of people who do that.
Yes, absolutely. And so it's great to know that from an ergonomic standpoint. I think also one of the things that we might be looking at is maybe the quality of the camera on our machine or on our laptop might not be strong enough. So you may need to find an external camera, and the way things have been going nowadays, they're selling out just like that. So being able to, and I always try to recommend that if you're going to look for a camera, I have set up also a multi-stream option with using different phones, but make sure the quality is consistent all the way through. And somebody mentioned they had like a little bit of a grainy thing. That might be the camera, not sure, but just use that as a troubleshooting process.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was a good question. Do we have more questions? You're on mute.
One of the things that you actually talked about was like the sound issues, and you had actually asked maybe what was one of the most challenging situations. Well, somebody mentioned, let's say Donisha, she said the worst issue I've had is related to trying to find the sound mic features with the docking station. So maybe on the bottom, I think. One of the things, Anissa, you mentioned about trying to get your window together. One of the tips I have is that I'll set up my multiple windows in a tile before I even get started, because I take one moment and I may click outside if my windows are not tiled, and then I get lost. I lose my chat screen or I use my camera window. So in advance, I clear all unnecessary windows and then tile the ones I need to make it easier to go through the transition.
Yeah.
Excellent advice. Do y'all see what just came into the chat room?
Yeah.
This is the perfect answer.
I know.
Okay, I'll read it out loud. I always look grainy or have a smoky, hi Bettina. I always look grainy or have a smoky bar room filter look. What could be the issue? Minutes later, oops, I just removed the plastic covering on my camera. Whoa, this should help some.
That's hysterical. That is so sweet. Yeah, sometimes they're just simple things, simple solutions, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
pause for a moment and do a behind the curtains kind of tip. So what we're just doing right now, we're using the chat. I prompt you with a question. I prompt you with a question that's on the screen. I take us off the screen. Then, because the question is fairly simple, right? But I've asked you to respond in chat. Now, give you a few minutes to respond in chat. And then I punt over to my partner, right? So then the interaction is reading from the chat, right? That's very interactive, right? We're reading your responses. We're reading your questions. So if you have time for that, weave that into your design, your virtual design, to be able to interact in that particular way. It's very satisfying because, I ask everybody a question, and the best way is for us to see it in chat, and then basically Karen's your voice. Karen becomes your voice at that point. So anyway, these are all just very creative ways to keep people engaged. And my timer just went off, Anissa, so I'm going to just...
You're actually good. You're on the flow. We have until the top of the hour, so just keep on running it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. So a lot of things can happen with virtual delivery, and we've got a couple of just simple things. One thing you might have noticed is it's really tough to interrupt someone. So Karen and I use a little set of signals, visual signals. I call this our rabbit card. And in case one of us go into a rabbit hole, and a rabbit hole is a verbal hole in which the person is talking and can't get themselves out of it. So if I ever fall into a rabbit hole, then Karen holds up the card.
That's great.
And then I'm like, okay, right. And then it's a joke. So using fun things like this, really, it's fun. If you are teaching a class and you need for there to be some mechanism, some fun mechanism for people to interrupt each other, this is a really great way. And believe me, the first time a student or someone actually pulls a rabbit card on you, that is a sign of trust. They trust you because they know that you're not going to get mad, right? Because you've told them to do it, right? Once we start doing this with each other, we can all be responsible for the time. We can all help to be timekeepers. And it makes a difference. It really does. Okay, next one is background noise. We can control the mute function in the Zoom settings. We can do sort of a universal put everyone on mute, but there are times that you actually want people to stay off of mute because you want them to engage more rapidly. We know this, right? Once you're on mute, it takes you a couple of seconds to come off of mute if the presenter's asking you a question that he or she wants your voice, right? So background noise, yes, we can handle it with the mute function, but also we need to have people to feel that they can jump in. It's just a challenge. So when you want people to be on mute, if this is a voluntary thing, just say, everybody manage your mute button. And as soon as we go into the next question, I'm going to have you come off of your mute, right? This is me giving instruction about what I'd like people to do. People do multitask nowadays a lot on virtual meetings. And this is just our life. This is no character judgment whatsoever, because if you saw my desk right now, you would know that I absolutely multitask sometimes if I feel like I have an extra 5 minutes to get something done, because I'm trying to juggle so many things. Now, the technique to bring people back, if you really need them to come back to you, is bringing them back with full video, right? So once I change that, I don't know if you noticed how that felt. It's like, oh, okay, then we're coming back in. So it's a signal in terms of a transition, and that will give people the idea. Let's come back. So but it is the way of our world now, is that we do multitask. All right, I'm going back in. I popped out of slideshow. Oh, here we go. My PowerPoint goes into giving me subtitles. People use various devices. Here's another thing that you might want to think about. You can have things look different when you have a laptop versus a Surface device versus if you're coming into a Zoom on your phone, for example. So everything is going to look different. People might have questions about how things look for them on the device that they are on. So that's part of your comfort with the platform, is to understand what's happening if someone comes in on their phone, what it might be like for them. And people are running from meeting to meeting a lot nowadays. I don't know about all of you, but well, yesterday I think I spent 7 hours on Zoom calls. And if one call runs late, then I'm late to the next call, right? So I'm jumping in. I try to jump in and not be disruptive. But one of the reasons why we partner is that in case someone is coming in late to a meeting that we're having, Karen can help that person. She can say, hi, how are you doing? Do you need any help getting set up? Here's where we are, right? We integrate them as quickly as we can into the session. And definitely tag team. I mentioned this before, but it really does help with the coordination and the backup. If my PC, I just forgot to plug it in somehow, and the meeting went down for me, Karen can take over until I can get myself plugged in, right? Those kinds of things happen all the time. So it just makes it so much smoother if you have a partner. I'm going to cover this fairly quickly. This is about physical presence, which I think I've mentioned this a little bit. We're on camera. We're definitely, when we're using Zoom video cameras, we are on camera. We don't know if a person is seeing us this big or if they're seeing us this big on their monitor, right? You could be seeing every spot where I didn't smooth in my blush. You could. And so that's part of why we have to be prepared visually to be on camera, including things that are, I'll say, nonverbals, things that we are doing with our face, where it's a bit like acting sometimes. If you're doing something that's very, very formal, is to be very aware of what's happening on your face, including not doing a whole lot of face touching, nose rubbing, hair fixing, glasses. I mean, every once in a while you'll see me, I might push up my glasses. I try very hard to only use this finger here, just in case. But anyway, we do still have to take care of ourselves, but it can be distracting if it's very extreme. And lighting and background. Before we started, I was asking, how's my lighting here? So what you see in your video is what everyone else is seeing. So if you have a lot of light right behind you, it is going to cast a shadow on your face. So you're better off to be sitting with light in front of you or to the side of you, right? And then I've got a little, I don't know if you can see it, I've got a little OT light, which if I need to have more light shining onto my face so you can see me better, that's important. And then camera angle, finally, I'm going to be a little bit silly, but this is important. But if the camera angle is like this, it's not going to be a pleasant experience for your people. Or maybe if it's like this, it's not going to be very cool either. So make sure you are in frame. Oh my goodness, we've had so many funny mishaps these days. All right, who's seen this? Karen, you've got a comment?
Hey, Kris, just before we go on, somebody had a question about what kind of light. So Kris gave me one light. So Kris, bring your light back on. So
this is my alt light.
Yeah, so this is, you gave this to me. What is this?
That's also an alt light.
Okay, so there you go. What kind of light? Spell it.
It's OTT, and it's a brand of lighting that gives really nice bright light for reading. That was originally why I got it, was for reading and studying, but it actually shines a nice light onto your face. And they're little portable lights that you can move around. So lighting on your face is important, even if you have to do something that it's artificial.
Right. Yes, and I do think that that's a great idea. I'm actually going to put a link in the chat room for those of you that might be interested in this. I do use this light also. I am in front of the window, but it is also important to make sure that you have appropriate light. And if you're wearing glasses, be very aware of that as well in terms of where your lighting is. So for example, I have my natural light and the OT light. Now, if I put on my glasses, I'm doing okay so far, but just be aware of glare, okay? And so that will also force you, the pillow on the chair, sitting up, and that will also help you as well. So I'll put a link in the chat. Thank you.
You're a poet, Karen. You're a poet. Be aware of the glare. Okay. All right.
I'm spitting fire. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. So we have a lot of fun. And I encourage everybody to have fun doing this, because when you're relaxed and you're enjoying whatever you're delivering, everyone else will be relaxed and enjoy it too. It's a natural transmission of emotion that we know happens. We know it happens in a classroom or meeting room, but it happens virtually too. All right. Now, who's seen this slide? Just type in the chat feature if you've seen this slide. This is from some research by Morabian a long time ago. I've got it in my notes when this research was done, but this is sort of, I'll say universally true, what we know about how people make meaning out of different sources of content. So body language, paralanguage, verbal, the actual words. But what's happening with us now in a virtual delivery setting, if 55% of our message is related to body language, but guess what? They're only seeing half of our bodies. What's happening? Where do we focus our attention now? What do you think? Yeah. Madonna had it right. Over here. Yeah, so we call it the frame. So everything that's happening from your shoulders to the top of your head is in frame, and really the place where people are getting all of this body language from you, right? Yes, you might be using some hand gestures, but if you're using a lot of hand gestures, it might actually be a little distracting for people. So hand gestures within moderation, right? The other part of this that's important is paralanguage, which is our voice, our tone, our rate of speech, when we are laughing, all of those things come into play and are really important. And I think that I'll say be yourself. I don't think you have to try to transform yourself. These points are just really about awareness. So be yourself, enjoy what you're delivering. Know that if you're an expert in whatever you're delivering, that people are gonna love it. All right, how are we doing? I've got just a couple more minutes. And Karen, I'm gonna click through this for you.
Okay, yeah, put it all up there and I'll go pretty quickly. So this portion is just about how do you consider what you include in your virtual delivery. Now, when you have, let's just say you have an 8 hour session and you need to convert it to virtual delivery. First thing I would always recommend is when you're looking at your material, decide what is absolutely core that you need to have in those sessions. Maybe you have the opportunity to modify it to make it shorter to fit virtual delivery. Or what some people say is that, no, Karen, I have to convert a whole 8 hour class. So what we want to make sure you do is you break down your sessions into 60 to 90 minutes. Honestly, that's the best that we can look at in terms of time frame and trying to avoid the Zoom fatigue. Also, what you look at is, how do I break down this material? If you're breaking it down into multiple sessions, look at to have at most 3 to 4 themes per each session. That way it doesn't become overwhelming for everyone, all the participants, and even for you, because we as facilitators, we get tired too, right? Also, take into consideration the visuals that you're using. We love to have a little splash of animation here and there, but again, try to be careful not to use too much because that'll get distracting. Now, one of the tips I learned a long time ago about PowerPoints is no more than 3 different types of fonts, right? Or no more than a certain number of colors, or else it looks like a ransom note. And I can say that because I'm former law enforcement. But anyway, just make sure that you're just being very careful and aware about what you put on your slides. And lastly, don't forget your icebreakers and energizers. And like Kris, you can see, Kris and I have a great time. So just add some levity and humor and it'll make it go through a lot easier.
Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you, Karen. All right. So Anissa, do we have time for this last bit, or would you like us to wrap up? Oops, still on mute. There we go.
Unmute. The first tip is unmute yourself and watch the screen to make sure you've unmuted yourself. Tip number 1. Some of the things that you guys have shared, we've all learned the hard way, right? We've learned the hard way that this is an issue. Some of the things that I've learned in doing back-to-back sessions over the last month are get your water and have it handy. When you're doing multiple sessions, exactly, or more, 60 to 90 minutes is still long enough. You're going to need some water. I've also learned to write the phone number and the dial-in number down and have it handy, along with your extra hotspot, because you just never know when the electricity is going to go out, when a snowstorm in Colorado is going to shut you down in Houston, because it happened, I don't know, a week ago, I've also learned that glare-free glasses take longer to get delivered than you actually have these days. So I've been doing a lot with my glares, but this has been super fantastic. Thank you.
We have some contact information and one funny parting slide. Is it okay if I share just for?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is, so we really thank you everybody for being with us today and hope you found it helpful. And we would love to be in touch. Here's our contact information, which you will have later also. But
wait, go back there and let people at least write that down.
Oh, sure. Well,
one more. There you go. Karen at KarenHarold.com and Dr. Kris Lea with the K at Outlook.com. And it's Kris Lea Consulting and KarenHarold.com.
Yes. We went with real original names for our businesses. I know my grandson said, "Isn't that kind of conceited, Grandma?" And I'm like, well, that's what everybody does. So anyway, kids, they get you every time.
For sure. Yeah,
so please be in touch. We'd love to hear from you. And this is a message that we will leave you with, is that from Superdog Jack, we know you can do it. and we wish you all the best.
Yes. So Super Dog Jack is my 11-year-old pup I adopted when he was 6 months old. And he is my faithful companion. And if he can get things, he can still learn things, we can too.
Beautiful. Well
All
said.
right. Yes.
Well, thank you both, and thank you everyone for joining us. Please let us know what you thought and what you'd like more of, and reach out to Kris and Karen, and stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.